Let me tell you something real quick as far as the emotional process. I've clicked record, going live now for I think it's 137 days straight or something like that. And I've put countless videos out and I still pause right before I click the record button. Do I have everything right? Do I know what I'm going to say? Am I actually ready? Imagine that you could continue to move forward, create patterns of growth, which we'll talk about today, and somehow still question yourself. Crazy, right? Let's get busy. Let's work on this Saturday morning. We're going to get into the emotional spill audit. That's what we're talking about today. Catch the leaks before they flood you. Are you drowning? The leak you ignored is now the flood you are drowning in. I gave that away. It didn't hit you all at once. You didn't break out of nowhere. You just kept leaking. A little emotion here, a little disappointment there, a suppressed frustration, a silent grief, an unchecked trigger. And what you didn't catch in private eventually drowned you in public. You called it just a bad day. But it was the consequence of everything you never confronted. Warning. This transmission exposes unacknowledged emotions as sabotage signals. Side effects may include emotional eruptions triggered by minor inconveniences, passive-aggressive tone, or unpredictable energy shifts, disconnection from your own progress, and feeling stuck without a reason you can articulate. Those hurt. Welcome to Raw for Epoch 2, day 137. We got a good show. We got some good things to talk about. Today, we're not managing emotions. We're auditing the leaks before they rewrite your covenant and flood the house you were built to protect. Will you protect this house? I got a book I'm going to reference. I got something I journaled. We're going to go into our standard concept overview, personal perspective, black book, consequences, how to, and etc. But I think after personal perspective, I'm going to share some things that blew my mind. Here's your concept overview. Your system is leaking even when you seem fine. Most people don't explode, they corrode. And emotional sabotage doesn't just show up in tears or tantrums. It shows up in tone, in tension, in avoidance, in silence. The truth is, your emotions don't disappear when ignored. They just find new exits. Your system is either processing or it's spilling. And if you're not checking the leak, you're letting your unhealed history drip into your current covenant. Here's what you'll learn. How to recognize micro leaks before they manifest as breakdowns. Why emotional residue creates identity drift. How emotional memory gets stored biologically and spiritually. You know I'm about that spirit life. God above all. What happens when primitive brain states override conscious presence, and a framework to ritualize and repurpose emotional overflow before it damages what matters? Your life, your relationships, your environment, community, God, faith, source, honor, all that stuff. Here's our visual metaphor. We call this the closet you never cleaned. Picture this. Imagine a room in your house. Quiet, closed off. Maybe it got a caution sign on front of it. Untouched. Every time you suppressed something, a disappointment, an argument, a regret, you tossed it in that room. like old clothes you swore you'd never wear again, like gifts you never opened, like pain you weren't ready to process. And at first, it looked harmless, but now it's rotting. There's a smell. There's rigor mortis in the air. You need some forensics. You don't remember what's in there, but you can feel its weight. That is your emotional system. And some of what's leaking out of you is not new. It's a dead body you never buried properly. It's a past you never burned. It's grief you tried to outgrow instead of outlive. Today, we ain't folding clothes. We're exhuming corpses. Let's see who's on the chat Saturday morning live with us, getting busy, getting ready to dominate the day. Here's my personal perspective. Self-control. I wasn't losing control, I was giving it away. There was a season in my life, it felt like a never-ending season, where my morning started with memory reconstruction. Not vision, not prayer, not presence, just trying to remember. What did we argue about last night? Some of you know that feeling where the first emotion of the day is regret, but it's disguised as problem solving. Some of you today are waking up with that hangover. I've been there too. But you're not resolving anything. You're calculating the damage. What did I do? Did I black out? That's when it hit me. It wasn't that I was losing control. I was handing it over to whatever emotion showed up first. And naturally, I called that normal. I called that manhood. I called that stress. But what it really was spiritual submission to the lowest part of me. I thought leadership meant responding fast, but real leadership is responding from rank. Yeah, I had habits. I had hustle. But I didn't have a system to remind me who was in charge when it mattered. So my marriage kept leaking. My mood kept shifting. My presence kept glitching. And everything I was working hard to protect was slowly drowning in my emotional residue. That's right. You ain't the only one drowning. You bringing people with you. Until I realized, if I don't command the version of me that shows up, the lowest version of me will volunteer. So I got militant with everything. I wake up before the emotions do. I pray before my triggers get a chance to rise. I move my body before my body gets to argue back. Right now, it's screaming at me. I read before I'm fed by fear. I hydrate before I try to fill myself with anything external. I create, like I'm doing right now, before the world tells me what to consume. Why? Because peace is not found. It is built. And emotional authority doesn't come from suppressing feelings. It comes from assigning protocol to the parts of you that used to lead the riot. Now, when the tension surfaces, I don't ask how I feel. I ask who's allowed to speak. And if that version of me hasn't been rehearsed, I don't let him take the mic. Because the version of me I'm building has earned the right to lead this life. Self-control ain't about saying no to your emotions, as if somehow they are listening. It's about knowing which part of you wrote the covenant and making sure he or she is the only one allowed to speak in a storm, and the storm is a brewing, and the storm is a coming. We're gonna get into the black book, but I thought appropriate for this Saturday, reflecting, contemplating, thinking about how things go. I'm reading this book here, Prometheus Ring. I don't know if you can see it on the screen. This book is mind bending. In it, they talk a lot about the mind, right? The brain, the mind. But there's something I want to highlight as it pertains to emotions. And the black book will get into this, but try and process this information, right? We have three circuits in the brain: mammalian, reptilian, and then the least legacy, the newest portion of our brain, which is more hundreds of thousands of years versus billions of years old, is the third circuit. It's where the rational sort of sense lives. So think about rationalizing your life, which means likely ignoring the emotions. The other two, more primitive, they can be hijacked emotionally. The first two circuits of your mind, right, are based on negative feedback. The function of negative feedback is to return to such a steady state. That is, they return over and over and over to the same ecological, ethological balances. Emotionally, steady state, not moving forward. I talked about how I woke up and I would think about, damn, what did I do last night? Damn, did we argue last night? Where am I at this morning? Repeating these sort of, I believe deeply in routines, but we're going to be clear and concise about routines. A steady state routine is negative in nature. So you take a negative and a positive, you'll always get a negative. Yes, you might wake up grateful that you're alive, but if you keep repeating the same habits and behaviors that got you to exactly where you're at, that's a negative approach to how your circuitry works. You're not allowing it growth. That's the significance of the third portion. The third circuit, right, is sort of like a guided missile. It is a mechanism that cyberneticists and biologists called positive feedback. It does not return to steady state. This is significant. When you create something positive for yourself, emotionally and even chemically and biologically, it does not return to steady state. It only seeks more growth. The only way to continue to leverage the most prominent portion of your rational brain that helps you grow is to continue to move towards growth. If you don't, which would be a positive, right? I wake up, I'm grateful, and then I move in a positive direction of growth. Positive and a positive is always going to give you a positive. It's basic math. That also relates to your spirit. If your spirit is on 1,000 and it knows where it's going and it's always going towards growth, that's why I refer to God as apex, the infinite. God is limitless. I take my limited self and I apply it to the infinite, finite to the infinite, and now I have no limits, no barriers, no blocks, no barricades, no restrictions, no limits. So I relate in it. This is why spirit's important. The physical reality would tell me otherwise. That's cool. I'm not in any way, shape, or form delusional. I know that there's obvious limits to life, but I don't limit my growth pattern. And in that way, I don't return to negative stasis, steady state, which is what a lot of us are accustomed to as far as how we got to where we got to. We are simply just repeating patterns and habits and behaviors and hoping and praying that somehow it's going to be different. But chemically, your mind is like, yo, we're just returning to the negative state, which is not negative always in definition. It's just lack of growth. So lack of growth will return you to a steady state process of just repeating exactly where you were. And it's usually negative in that, again, there's no positive growth. I wrote this down too as far as why we might struggle with some growth. I journaled this morning. You cannot rehearse growth. That's why process is important. So when we think about returning to a steady state, it's likely already conscious, created, or emotionally created circumstances for our life. That's the significance of negative steady state. You've already been here. You should know what to expect. It's not moving you. Growth and the process of sort of being a guided missile towards the infinite, let's say, is that you don't really know what's going to happen. You can't rehearse growth because there's a lot of unknown and a lot of variables, which also naturally creates an energy and an emotion of fear, because when we can't predict and we can't control, we lose control. We get scared of the growth. We start to question how I question today. I've only been doing this for a few years now, and I don't know how many days straight, but I still pause before I click the record button. That's just a natural tendency of the emotion to take over and self-doubt ourselves. You can't avoid that. But that is why the process is so important. So if I have a process that's routine towards growth, that's why we talk about regularly, you want to hijack, if you would, or avoid being hijacked by setting when you go to sleep, when you wake up, the intentionality around that. I talked about hydration in the process. It's not just that it's good for you to be hydrated, and the reality of 8 hours of sleep, 7 hours of sleep, 10 hours of sleep, whatever you get, your body naturally dehydrates. It's that I functionally create a process of growth in that I rehydrate myself to ensure I have the energy to move forward. I start with prayer because it aligns me back with the root. It allows me to eliminate and forget all the things that have gotten me where I've gotten, which emotionally can stop me. And naturally, you read all these things, you gain some wisdom, and you start to understand, I'm not going to let my emotional processes that are primitive. We're talking about functions in the brain that are billions of years of existence and through evolution, all the way back to super caveman days, right? I don't want to be hijacked by fear. So if I don't want to be hijacked by fear, I got to understand that I got to rehearse growth. How do I rehearse growth? Really, I just keep moving forward. So growth means, what did I write here? Sometimes I can't understand my chicken scratch. Okay. When you don't grow, you're guided backwards. The other things I can't read. Imagine that I can't read my own handwriting. Sometimes I write so fast I can't wait to miss it. Or I can't wait to not miss it that I forget it. So if growth is a guided missile forward, then stagnation and stasis and negative patterns of non-growth, and it's not linear, is a guided missile backwards. And if you start to process that, you could sort of rationalize, if you give yourself time to rationalize. That's why emotionally it's difficult. If you haven't grown in a long time in your life, it's gonna affect you emotionally. That's how the dead bodies get built in your closet. That's how it starts to smell and it starts to rot. Because a lot of the reason we stop growing is because we likely got hit along the way. We ran into a block, a barrier, whether it was a relationship, something that we tried and we failed at, or at least perceptually we failed. Failing is just really just quitting. We stopped. We know we checked out. We know we detached. That's some of what we do too today in this space is very popular. Detach, quiet quit. Just pretend like you don't care. You care. And the more you pretend like you don't care, the more you hijack your system into thinking that comfort, and that's a lot of what the guided missile backwards is for. The guided missile backwards is to return to just survival of comfort. The guided missile forward is a different level of survival that's uncomfortable. And the only way you can continue to pursue and persist is to continue to find ways to grow. Can't rehearse that, right? Where you at, chat? Let's get into our black book. Here's the system mechanics of unchecked emotional spill. Memory isn't just storage, it is instruction. Every unprocessed emotion becomes a system command. It tells your brain what to fear. It tells your spirit what to avoid. It programs your body to either react or retreat, fight, flight, freeze. Most people live in emotional stasis not because they lack vision, we all know where we want to go, but because their reptilian and mammalian brain circuits are running negative feedback loops of comfort and familiarity. I referenced this already. It's worth repeating. In Prometheus Ring, it teaches the reptilian brain equates to survival. The mammalian brain is emotional memory. The rational brain seeks growth, but only if the body can handle it. We talked about the body yesterday. Don't limit yourself with your body, man. You're gonna hate it later. So when the emotion spikes, the body defaults to what's familiar, even if it is dysfunctional. You think you're just not in the mood, but you're actually choosing to return to the same emotional cage that feels most like home. Yes, it can feel like that. Returning to the negative is comfortable. You think you're safe. You're just surviving. The danger of steady state. Most emotional spill isn't explosive. It's actually more you implode than anything. It's predictable comfort and negative behavior. That familiar argument is not new. Some of you have been arguing about the same things for decades. You return to it because your system prefers predictable pain over unfamiliar peace. Your system prefers predictable pain over unfamiliar peace. Even if you are frustrated by the fact that you haven't grown, that you are predictable in your pain, your mind, your body, your spirit will default to that. Because the guided missile of growth is, it's not that it's uncommon, it's too unknown, too big of a variable. So you won't change, not because you can't, but because you haven't ritualized growth as your new baseline. That's why the routine is important. Now the steady state wins. Even if it's killing you, and I told you it's bigger than you, even if it's killing them. Emotional transfer is covenant responsibility. Here's the system law. You outsource your emotional frequency to everything around you. And everything around you in that way is outsourcing its emotional frequency to you. We're all vibing. And if you're not outsourcing to God, to Root, Creator, the infinite, whatever, you're outsourcing to fear, stress, comparison, frustration. Your silence carries tone. Your presence emits pressure. Your eye contact transmits emotion. Your family, your community, your environment, your people absorb what you fail to audit. So every time you return to a negative state, you are dragging your covenant with you. And you are infecting the people you claim to love the most with the emotional stasis you refuse to challenge. Why is this space so popular when they talk about getting into a challenge? It is because if you don't, the portion of your brain which is going to ignite your spirit will not be active. You will default to a stasis of survival and comfort. It's not the cash aspersions and indictment. There's nothing really wrong with you. Yeah, it's been hard. Some of us have gone through unfathomable things. But you refuse to challenge yourself. And the more you refuse to challenge yourself, the more you regress. We talked about it. You atrophy. Your mind atrophies. Your body atrophies. Your spirit atrophies. God atrophies. Why can't I hear God? You stop speaking to God. Or actually, you're just repeating the same messages to God. I thought about this today too. Sometimes you might pivot and you decide, yo, I've been looking for growth. Maybe you've been following the channel since the challenge started January 1st and you're 137 days in. And you're like, yo, why don't I see everything I said I was going to do? Why isn't God handing me everything that I asked for? Maybe some of you have followed your New Year's resolution all the way through to this date and time. You're like, yo, God, where you at? I made all these changes. How come I haven't seen the fruit? There's also a reality that God is like, okay, you've been on it for 137 days. I've been on it for at least the last 5-6 years. I'm 43. What about the other 37, 38, 39 years? You think that because you've made a change for the last 90 days or 100 days, it eliminates the other 37 years that God was working on you? You thought God stopped working on you. You thought because you call on God now that he was silent the entirety of your existence to that point? No. The laws of the universe, collective consciousness, the way environments works, the way culture works, the way God works, always creating. So you've been asking for creation the entirety of your existence, whether you were conscious of it or not. whether you were imprinted on in a way you agreed to or not, whether you were handed a set of circumstances that were ideal or the least ideal. Your relationships, your career, your finances, your everything about your home, everything. You've asked for it. Likely unintentionally, without pure and blissful consciousness. But you were talking to God the entire time. You were praying the entire time. You were attracting the entire time. And you think because of the last year or two of opposite move, God is like, yo, I got to pull everything apart. I got to pull it apart at the root. And oh, by the way, there's an entire universe that God got to work on too at the same time. You ain't the only one. And sometimes too, when God is performing surgery, God goes quiet. He don't got time to talk to you and reassure you and give you like you don't want to continue to grow unless you're constantly being reinforced and reaffirmed with positivity. Oh, you're doing great. You're doing just fine. You're amazing. Get some more likes and some. No. Oh, you said you're going to do this. Cool. It's going to take some time. I got to perform surgery. The minute you stop moving, that's when God stops performing surgery. The minute you default back into your old rhythms and patterns and habits, your negative state, oh, guess what? God got to come off the surgery table and go back into continuing to do what you would do that kept you comfortable and safe. That's the significance of it. Some of you make moves and you get a little bit of wins and then you stop and then God's like, oh, well, here we go back over here. Consciousness, your subconscious and how it works, your spirit, your mind, your emotions, they'll go right back. You can come very far from where you were. But it's so deeply ingrained and rooted into your spirit and into your consciousness, it doesn't take a lot to fall back. And the minute you fall back, it'll all just overtake you again. And because it's built so strong, and because you didn't give yourself enough time over here, this can't supersede it. The new life, the new body, the new mind, the new degree, profession, career, entrepreneur, whatever, the business, or you know how much time this takes? Not just even if you just started at blank, if you were born into humanhood and adulthood today, and you never knew nothing about the past, it still takes time relative if you have a clean slate. But now you're working from a dirty closet. There's mad bodies. You don't even want to excavate. You don't even want to clean that out first before you start deciding you want all this new stuff. So not only does it take time to build from scratch to break new ground, everything here got to be broken down. Why? It can't come with you over here. You need it to understand why you want to be over here, but it can't come. You can't take those bodies with you, but you need it to understand, to remember why you're staying over here. So God, he'll give you, I need time. And if you miss the message that he needs time, that's not his problem. And because of free will and the love, it's just cool. You want to return? No judgment, no condemnation. You're not going to burn in a pit. You're just going to go right back to where you were. There's consequences of inaction. Who's in the chat on a Saturday? Where you at, chat? You'll think you're managing just fine, but your kids will start mimicking your anxiety. Your partner will start tensing around your silence. Your peace will become circumstantial. Your rest will become performative, and slowly. You'll grow numb to your own tension. You'll start justifying your absence with your effort. You'll confuse responsibility with presence. You'll call emotional maturity your ability to avoid confrontation. I just don't care. I'm detaching from everything. And worst of all, you will pass on pain as routine and call it life. Your silence will become your child's subconscious pattern. Your emotional stasis will become their spiritual limit, and the flood you never drained will be the one they drown in. Some of you have asked for dreams and aspirations. All of us have been given a gift that has been whispered to us. and you're letting it drown. Everything about what you could have and everything that you continue to see is drowning. Likely because you just can't get over yourself. You can't get over yourself spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, physically, on and on across the spectrum of control you have. That's why I said self-control. At some point, how many times have I said it? If it wasn't you that got you here, it's not you that can take you out. That means you have no self-control. And you keep crashing out to the world around you. You keep crashing out internally, trying to figure out why everything around you is crashing. It's drowning. Here's how to lock daily remembrance. Start by naming the leak. Not every emotional rise is a crisis. It really isn't. Some of it is not that serious. But everyone is a signal. Name it before it reprograms you. Then you want to ritualize the burial. Some memories need clearing, others need burning. Stop stuffing dead bodies in the closet. Either bury them properly or burn them completely. Some things need to be cremated. And you want to embed frequency into the field. Your emotions are not yours alone. They're being absorbed by your environment, by your community, by your relationships, by your family. So emit to them what you want them to remember and seal what they should never inherit. What is the greatest generational curse we could pass down? Poverty, brokenness, welfare lines. I've experienced it. And there's still love there. But the generational curse is that we don't, or that we inherit consciousness. We inherit trauma loops. We inherit pain. We inherit regression into the negative. And yeah, yo, look, it's been occurring for so long. We probably can't trace back who lost it when, and when it shifted and when it changed. And the evolution through technology, through expansion of life, through other folks trying to remember as much and seek their own abundance, it all gets convoluted and diluted. I get it. But what you are creating for yourself, you are handing down into your generation. And even if you don't have children, you're a contributor to society. How you walk the streets, how you perform, how you represent yourself impacts the people around you. I know it doesn't sell t-shirts. It ain't that cool. It probably won't go viral. But then we wonder why we're fractured as communities. Why we hurt each other inside of our own. Why do we create fear in our own environments? I've been in that place too. Scared to walk outside on my own block. Why? The ultimate survival state, is it really that bad? And then you know, at some juncture, all of us have, even if it's a brief moment where we wake up, this is not really what I would want. But yet you continue to accept it, and then worse, you pass it down. And you pass it off. That's why we're going to talk about soon the plague of consciousness. We just cough away our weakness. You stand within 6 feet of somebody who complains, and you wonder why you complain. You stand 6 feet in front of somebody, away from somebody who quiet quits, who doesn't care and detaches the wrong way, who suppresses and regresses, and you wonder why you're suppressing and regressing. That's culture. Look at the culture. Most people are behaving the exact same way. How did dad bods become a thing? Because we just accepted it. And now we build mannequins that look like it. And when you give yourself a self-inflicted disease and you wonder, why doesn't my heart work? Oh, you haven't used it really in 20, 30 years. You've been putting stress on it anyway. The stress of doing nothing. And then you pass that soda and cheeseburger and fry. Look, I'm guilty. It's easy to pull up to a McDonald's. Not casting aspersions. I'm just saying, do you understand what you're doing when you do that? The fast food nature of life, yo. You never pause. You never take a time out. And it just keeps stacking. And because it stacks so heavy, you leak. And then you walk around drowning. Let's get into our creation covenant loop. ARR. Yo, I had McDonald's fries last night. I get it. Do you know that? I read this. You probably understand it emotionally. The way they make it smell. The crunch around the fries. Then they also create them so that they immediately dissolve on your tongue. So the oil and the salt and all that. That is to create an addiction, yo. It's wild. That's one of the things that blows my mind too. How heavily influenced we are in life. Influencers are taking over the world, right? We've always been influenced. It's just more accessible now. You ever stop to think that like hundreds of years ago, your access to people was like 50 deep? It was only whoever was in your block? Because you weren't calling nobody, texting nobody, you weren't on the internet. Now we have access to everything, yo. Massive influence that has an emotional impact. And that's a lot of what I talk about, the plague of consciousness. We don't even help our lineage understand what's happening. Make the choice. It's not about pulling up to the McDonald's every day. It's that, do you really realize what you're doing to yourself? If you did, I would argue you probably wouldn't. You probably limit it to once a month. Or maybe even every other week. It's the same thing with the doom scrolling. It's the same thing with the binge watching. It's all a massively influential process that your brain just picks up on and defaults into stasis and stagnation. Zombie mode. I'm on the mic. It's just about intentionality. We're going to talk soon about predator and prey. Are you a predator or are you prey? We're all being preyed on in some way. That's also the power of influence. Consciousness. We're not handing off consciousness properly. My opinion, my estimation. Here's the creation covenant loop. ARR audit remix. Record. I don't know why I went that way. I don't know. That was a little bit of Spanish, I think. You got the call. Now move like it's recorded. We start with an audit. Ask yourself, what emotion am I avoiding? What argument keeps returning with a new face? What memory have I never ritualized? I just repackaged. And here's the trap. If your steady state is pain, you will always find your way back there. Check the leak before it becomes your lifestyle. Why the process is so important. You're already in a process. You've already mastered the process of your current life. That is how it becomes comfortable. How does comfortable become comfortable? It was first uncomfortable. You fought your way through it. You returned to it. You never evolved it. The wildest thing for me with consciousness, some of you have never thought your own original, unique thought. You've been inundated and overwhelmed with other thoughts, other levels of consciousness, other influences. Who are you really? And if you're in the same place and haven't grown in decades, what have you, like, your stasis is like you're a dead creation. But you found yourself through discomfort there before. All of us do. Even the smallest and most minute and minuscule and micro of steps that you take that, come on now. You're going to tell me you're out there, you're watching, you're listening, you haven't had a level. We know what accomplishment is. You've accomplished something in your life. And instead of leveraging that process to say, this is how I keep accomplishing, you got it, you hoarded it, you stuck that in the closet too, and now that's all you can do is maintain it. Whereas if you build a routine of discomfort, a creative arc that's a guided missile forward, onward, and upward. Shoot yourself into the sky. Shoot yourself into the sky like a rocket ship. And don't come back down ever. Why do you got to come back down? That's what a routine of growth does for you. That's what the process does for you. The process allows you to, at some point, your mind, your body, your spirit, your consciousness will check back in and be like, oh shit, I'm not uncomfortable today. Was this intentional? And now all those things that are comfortable, rest becomes that much more brilliant and wonderful. You rest with intention. I had, my cheat days, ice cream and McDonald's tastes a lot better. I had somebody this week during business. We were talking about some of our patterns. And he said, I only drink milk in my coffee on Saturdays. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, no milk in the coffee. That's not a big deal. It is a big deal. So I asked him, I said, how does the coffee taste on Saturday? Oh my God, it tastes so much better. Why? He doesn't have milk for 6 other days. So if you're grinding and you're building yourself towards uncomfortable growth and the rocket shit going up, every now and again you kind of just orbit and you just go a little still because gravity does its thing. And you could, all right, rest there a little bit. You rest a lot deeper. And then you'll feel the rest and know, all right, cool, I've rested long enough. I got to, maybe you need a week. People who lift, they know you go through I forgot what the week is called. Oh, shucks. What do you call it? A deload. You kind of sort of deload. So maybe you train for like 16 weeks, and then you have a week where you take the entire week off, or you lift really, really light, or you run or do your cardio a lot lighter. You almost walk it. You deload. Because there is a reality, too, that you start to stimulate yourself in a lot of ways. Your nervous system, man. You get nervous. Growth is it triggers your nervous system like nothing you can ever believe in your life. Being conscious all the time about trying to do something triggers your nervous system like it's woo. It's like I don't know if it's like a piano or somebody's just constantly like on the strings of your emotions. So sometimes you got to deload. And then when you come back to the reality of, all right, I got my rest. Feels so much better. Those French fries taste really good. We're talking about our audit, covenant loop, audit, remix, re-record. This is our remix portion, our thought identity. Here's some of the old thoughts that probably permeate. I've dealt with that. I've already dealt with that, right? Yeah, I'm just tired. Or they're just sensitive. Or my favorite one, it's not that serious. If you got to think out loud that it's not that serious, it's probably that serious. Here's a new thought. I don't get to outsource my emotional governance. Every spill is either processed or passed on. If it's leaking, it's leading. Conflict resolution. I can't tell you enough, especially, and I'll just use the corporate world. Those who exceed, those who lead, those who ascend, those who make the boardroom deal with spills all the time. And they don't leak because then that precedes you. That's your reputation. That's how you are identified. They are the ultimate janitors and cleaners. They mop up everything. Conflict resolution. You want to be valuable to a business? Don't bring conflict into solutions. Bring solutions into conflict. You think that that's a wordplay or that it's very obvious. Most people see conflict and bring more conflict. It's just like that in relationships. Talk to somebody today and see how much they're complaining, and then see how they complain for complaints. And then ask them, what are you going to do about it? Complain some more. That's the negative feedback loop. That's negative returning to negative. And then provide a solution and watch the person who's used to complaining complain their ways into a solution of complaining. All this happened. What are you going to do? I don't know. Yeah, but this person, what are you going to do? I don't know. You want to ascend in life, whether it's the boardroom, whether it's through God, whether it's just for yourself, you got to have resolution. You got to be your own leader. That's why mind, body, and spirit is so important, in my opinion. You want to have resolve. Oh, that's the biggest thing too, that I didn't close the loop on. If you haven't processed it and brought it through resolution, it's still alive. That's the whole concept about dead bodies, right? You can ignore it all you want. It'll come for you. It'll come back for you. It is some of what we're going to talk about soon. The danger of behaving in the light through lust and seduction and all the immediacies that life offers us intimately for pleasure. You can get away with all of it. Most of us don't in this way. You got to live with that. Forget about being caught and whatever. And I'm not even suggesting that any of it is that egregious, but we see the things that go on. You know what you do. I know what I do. I know what I've done. When you don't process it, or you process it in a way that leaves it open-ended, you don't close the loop and bring resolution, it'll come back for you at the worst time. And the worst time it's going to come back to you is when you are on that growth arc and you're like, yo, God, oh shit, we're getting some moves. I got some wins. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm not winning anymore. That's the devil waiting for you, dog. It's just there, waiting for the most opportune time when you think, oh man, and it can catch you because it's while you're winning and while you're hyped and while you're motivated and inspired, it knows it can't do nothing to you. All ways to tempt you when all of that goes away. And then all those questions surface. And then you start to break because you never processed it. Then you want to re-record. I'm extending this more than I probably have to. But here we go. Our action identity. We've ordered it. We've gone through our remix with our thought. Now we got to take action. Pull one recurring trigger into the light. Journal it. Voice memo it. Speak it to God, root source. Close the loop by sealing a physical action. Here's one. Go apologize. Go on a fast. Rest. Train. Reflect in solitude. Cut the unnecessary. Move with remembrance, not reaction. That's what I talked about in my personal perspective about rehearsing. If I can always understand who it is I want to be, I've already had the foresight. So I've already processed it ahead of time. I know who I am being because I know who I'm becoming. Therefore, I know who I've become. I can remember and remind myself. I had a crazy dream the other day, and I went seeking for some answers on what I should do. We talk about fasting. I've never done a long fast. The most I've done is intermittent fasting. It's 16 hours overnight when I was going through a body transition. But sometimes you might go through something where it happened at breakfast, and you might want to. It might be something that feels like the flesh is winning. Fast to dinner. There's little micro things you could do that have massive, massive, massive implications towards the positive growth arc. As a reminder to yourself to remember who you are. So you don't react. You respond. And the reflecting in solitude is, I can't put a value on it. It's infinite. It's infinite. So we talk about, you don't need to be affirmed by somebody. You don't need to ask for advice on what you should be doing. The same is true for what you've done. You can reflect in solitude and know. You know it. That's why you want to reflect on it. It's making you feel uneasy and uneven. It needs some closure. You can close it by yourself. Some things you can't. The apology is great. And guess what? Sometimes you got to apologize. And the first apology is just, I'm sorry. And then the next apology is, I'm sorry because. And then the third, sometimes it's iterative. But you start the process. You might have to open up some old wounds. That hurts. And that'll hurt more. Why? Because if you're apologizing to somebody who is not you, first of all, how about you apologize to yourself? Learn how to apologize to yourself. You learn how to apologize to yourself, it makes it easier to apologize to other people. It's the same emotional experience. The difference is when you apologize to somebody else, eventually when they forgive you, it feels better than even when you forgive yourself. I don't know that I'll ever forgive myself for some of the things I've done. And then listen, I don't belong. I don't need to burn in hell, whatever it is. But it's enough where you question your integrity sometimes, because you say, yo, if I could be this person, if this is in me, that means it's always gonna likely be in me. Yes, true. It's my decision to not revert back. And it doesn't have to be that egregious and serious. It's just simply that you've been at this job long enough. You said you were going to leave years ago. You're still there. You're in this relationship. You said you were going to leave years ago. You're still there. You've been on the same block for too long. Change your community. Change your zip code. Go clean your closet. That's this whole make your bed thing. It's to show yourself completion, closure. My bed is undone. I make my bed. I am now complete and closed. It's a micro movement for macro expansion for your soul. You got to fall in love with the process. That's not motivational cliche. It's the requirement for your brain, literally, for your spirit, for your soul, to understand that it has places to go. Imagine that. You're not giving yourself a place to go. You're only giving yourself a place to stay. And you wonder why you're conflicted. You cannot call yourself a leader if your emotions lead you. You cannot call yourself a protector if your silence floods your home. Some of you think you walk away and it's, oh, I'm not going to say nothing. Okay? You can't call yourself healed if your family's still drowning in what you never drained. Passing on infected consciousness, the plague of consciousness, generational curses. This isn't about how you feel. It's about your system. It's about what your system does when you feel everything. Audit the spill before it steals the covenant. Own it or be owned by it. You either run the system or the system runs you. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich.